Welcome back to another episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother? In this alternate Naruto universe, one small twist changes everything. What if Naruto wasn't alone? What if he grew up with someone stronger, smarter, and born to rewrite destiny itself? Today, we dive deeper into the story of Kaito Uzumaki, Naruto's powerful older brother whose existence shakes the entire Shinobi world. New alliances form, new enemies rise, and the future of Konoha may never be the same again. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because this episode is about to change everything. Kushina and Hotaru barreled into him at once, wrapping Kaito in a fierce hug. "Kai-kun," they cried in unison. Kaito patted their backs, laughing breathlessly. "Guys, need air. I can't breathe." Shikaku exhaled, relief rubbing the lines from his face. "So that was the plan all along, using Hiraishin to get us out while you distracted the Raikage?" Kushina and Hotaru let go, Kushina immediately scolding. "What were you thinking, fighting him alone like that?" Kaito shrugged. "It was the best plan I could come up with, Mom." Shikaku asked, "Where did you teleport us to?" "Near Hacho Village," Kaito answered. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the forest floor with shifting gold. Kaito bounded from branch to branch with Kushina piggyback, her ponytail whipping behind her. Hotaru and Shikaku moved at his flanks, Hotaru cradling Pakken, while Naruto and Karen trailed in the middle of the formation. Karen was winded and struggling to keep pace. Naruto, hardened by Kaito's training, kept up easily. Spotting Karen lagging, Kushina called back, worried. "Kai-kun, maybe we should slow down a bit." Kaito glanced over, surprised. "Why, Mom?" "Karen-chan is having trouble," Kushina said gently. Kaito shot one quick look back at Karen and shook his head. "We can't waste time. We lost a day because of the Raikage. If we dawdle, we might lose Tsunade's trail." They'd teleported to the nearest marker after the Raikage run-in. The marker's location near Hacho Village had already housed Mukai's family. Shikaku had argued they lay low for the night. Kaito agreed, though exhaustion tugged at him. Teleporting people multiple times, blasting a wind Rasengan, and repeatedly using Hiraishin had cost him. Still, they pushed on at a steadier clip. Kaito offered, "If you can't keep up, I'll have a clone carry you." Karen shook her head stubbornly. "I can keep up, Kai and I." Kushina worried, Hotaru offered to carry her, and Pakken reported distance. "About an hour if we keep this pace." Naruto piped in cheerfully, "This is training." Kaito smiled. "All right. Tell me if you can't, okay?" Then he took the lead again. An hour later they dropped onto the path into Urakami town. Kushina slid off Kaito's back and beamed. "Thank you, Kai-kun." Naruto whooped. "Finally." Pakken hopped down and sniffed the air. "Faint trail, follow me." They threaded through the busy streets. Pakken paused at a shattered stone slab in an inn's courtyard, nose twitching. "Raikage sent here," he said. Everyone froze. Kaito scanned with Kagura's mind's eye. "He was here a few days ago, but not now," he said. Shikaku asked, "Can you smell Tsunade?" Pakken nodded and led them to the inn. The broken stone carried mixed scents. "Raikage and Tsunade here. Some encounter happened," he said. Kaito crouched to inspect the slab. "Looks like an arm wrestle ruined the rock," he joked, then scanned the town again. "No large chakra signatures. She's already left." One of the locals perked up. "Did you say Tsunade?" he asked, hopeful. "She borrowed 10 million from us and ran off gambling. Been looking for her days." Kushina gave an awkward, fond chuckle. "Sounds like Tsunade." Shikaku looked apologetic. "We were told she passed here recently. Must have moved on." Pakken sniffed the air again. "Trail goes out of town toward Dejirashi Port. Fresh. She left this morning. Baishuke's sense on it too." The group followed the trail out the other exit. Shikaku read the heading, Dejirashi Port. Kaito calculated travel time. "If we leave now we'll reach the port by nightfall." Kushina hesitated only a second before nodding. Naruto and Karen, despite fatigue, agreed to push on. Hotaru offered to carry Karen. Karen accepted gratefully. Kaito put Kushina on his back and called to Pakken, "Lead the way." They pressed on another 2 hours, sunlight dipping as salt air began to tease their noses. The port unfurled before them, wide docks, ships, and a bustling marketplace. Kushina slid off Kaito, stretching. Naruto moaned, "I'm starving. Can we eat now?" "Not yet," Kushina said, smiling. "We find Tsunade first." Pakken sniffed again. "She's here." A tan dog, one of Kakashi's ninken, popped out from the side road, canny and chatty. "You finally made it," he said. "Baishuk." Pakken and Baishuk exchanged greetings. Kaito handed Baishuk a packet of treats. "Thanks, lead us if you can." "Sund, she arrived a few hours ago," Baishuk said. He accepted the treat, then dispelled. Pakken led them through the crowded lanes to a bar. "She's definitely inside," he announced, nose to the door. Kaito could sense a cage-level chakra within. "Tsunade's in a private room with 2 others, a student and an older man," he told Kushina. "You sure we shouldn't wait until morning?" Kaito suggested, thinking about a clone stakeout. Kushina waved him off. "It's been a long time. She won't mind." She knocked gently on the sliding door. Inside, Shizune stirred, Tantan squealing in her arms. A slightly tipsy Tsunade muttered, and Jiroko Wasabi, the older man, half rose, grumbling. Shizune opened the door. Kushina stepped into the dim room, hair burning like a flare. "Hello. I'm here to see Tsunade," she said. Shizune peered at Kushina, puzzled. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Kushina Uzumaki," she answered, smiling. Tsunade's head snapped up. The room went silent. Her eyes widened like saucers. Kushina." Kushina's grin spread as she stepped fully through the doorway. "Hey there, Tsunade." Tsunade's door swung open to reveal a woman with long, vibrant red hair. Kushina stepped forward with a warm smile. "Hello, I'm here to see Tsunade." Shizune blinked at the unfamiliar face. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Kushina laughed softly. "Kushina Uzumaki." At that name, Tsunade's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. "Shizune, who's at the door?" Shizune glanced back, still uncertain. "She says she's Kushina Uzumaki." Then she stepped aside so Tsunade could see for herself. Tsunade froze, staring as if she'd seen a ghost. Kushina grinned and crossed the room, teasing, "Come on, Tsunade, you gonna at least hug me?" She planted her hands on her hips. Before Kushina could finish, Tsunade lunged and squeezed her into a bone-crushing hug. Tears gleamed in her eyes. Kushina returned the embrace easy and steady. "It's good to see you, Tsunade." When they parted, Tsunade's voice trembled. "Kushina, how are you alive? I thought you died in the Ninetales attack." Kushina pulled Kaito in next, wrapping him up. "Kai-kun here, he's the reason I'm alive." She winked. "But that's a long story for another time." Tsunade eyed Kaito, curious. He bowed politely. "It's nice to meet you, Lady Tsunade." Kaito." Tsunade blinked. "Last I saw you, you were a little kid." Kushina chuckled. 12 years do things to you, why no?" Tsunade glanced at the 2 children nearby. "And who are those?" Kushina nudged them forward. "This is Naruto, this is Karen. You'd have met them sooner if you ever visited more often." As Kushina and Tsunade caught up, Jiroko rose from across the room. "I'll leave you to it," he told Shizune, stepping toward the door. Shikaku stepped forward, producing the mission scroll. "Jiroko Wasabi? We're the ninja assigned to your request to clear that bandit camp." He offered the scroll. Jiroko read it, nodded. "Ah. I requested konoha help. Merchant caravans near Dejirashi port have been getting hit." He accepted the plan. "We'll begin tomorrow." With that, Jiroko left, and the room settled into an easy, warm buzz. Adults drank. The kids tucked into dinner. Tsunade glanced at Kushina with something like concern. "Why did you come looking for me?" Shikaku, casually nearby, raised an eyebrow. "And you, aren't you with the Nara? Why are you here?" Shikaku gave a deadpan shrug. "I'm their sensei." He nodded toward Kaito and Hotaru. Kaito didn't wait. "We came to see if you can heal Mom." Tsunade frowned. "Heal her? You look fine to me. What's going on?" Kushina's smile thinned. "I've been getting phantom pains." Kaito unsealed a scroll and handed Tsunade a copy of Kushina's medical records, acquired, he admitted later, by less than official means. Shizune's eyes widened. "You duplicated those?" Kaito shrugged sheepishly. "Sort of." Shikaku muttered, "Of course you would." Hotaru giggled. Tsunade scanned the file, brow tightening. "The old man let you leave the village for this?" she asked Kushina. Kushina's smile faltered. "He knows I'm out here." She glanced at Shikaku. He shrugged. "Not my idea," he said. "I told him to bring you back." Tsunade's lips tightened. "The rakeage?" She looked up. Kushina gave a nervous laugh. "We kind of ran into him yesterday. That's why we are a day late." Tsunade's face went serious. "I patched the rakeage up when he landed in my clinic. What did he do?" Kushina dodged with a half-smile. "Story for the hot spring, maybe." Tsunade flipped through the file again, slow and troubled. "This is worse than you've said, Kushina." Naruto pushed his ramen bowl away and added, "Mom hides it, but she's in pain most days." Kushina tried to lighten it. "It's not always that bad, Naru-chan." Tsunade snapped the file shut. "I'll need to examine you properly." She stood, braced herself, and called to Shizune, "Come with me." Kushina protested gently. "It's late. Maybe tomorrow? The kids are tired." Tsunade considered, then nodded. "All right. I work better sober." She gave Kushina a look that meant she'd be thorough in the morning. "Where are you staying?" Kaito stepped in. "I booked an inn." "Come by my place early," Tsunade said, sliding a folded address and instructions across the table. "I'll set up for you." Kushina hugged her. "Thanks, Tsunade. I've missed you." The hug lingered, then they all parted for the night. Kaito woke before dawn and padded to the mirror in the room he shared with Naruto. He hadn't slept well and was tense at the thought of what Tsunade might find. Naruto, sprawled on the tatami, snored. Kaito flicked a small ball of water at him. Naruto bolted awake with a yelp. "What the?" he sputtered. "Get ready," Kaito said. "We don't have time." Outside, Shikaku and Hotaru were making plans. "We'll take the bandit job ourselves," Shikaku told Kaito. Kaito blinked. "Why? I can send clones to handle them." Shikaku shook his head. "This gives you privacy with Kushina. Hotaru and I can handle it." Hotaru touched Kaito's arm. "You should stay with Mom for this, Kai-kun." Kaito relented and handed them each a tree-pronged kunai. "Channel chakra into these if you need me." They hugged the goodbyes, and Hotaru squeezed him tight. "She'll be okay," she murmured. Kushina and Karen joined them, and a bleary Naruto stumbled out. Over breakfast at a stall, Kaito offered a plan. His clone would take Naruto and Karen around Dejirashi while the real Kaito stayed with Kushina at Tsunade's. Kushina nodded. Naruto brightened. They split up. Kaito's clone escorted the kids, and the real Kaito accompanied Kushina to Tsunade's house. He waited in the hallway while Tsunade examined Kushina. A little later Shizune opened the door. "Kaito, you can come in." Inside, Kushina adjusted her shirt and sat up as Tsunade closed the medical folder and looked at her gravely. "Kushina, your chakra network around your abdomen, your coils, are destroyed. You shouldn't be alive. How you're holding together is a miracle." Kaito felt his stomach drop. Tsunade's voice was level but heavy. I'm sorry. There isn't much I can do to restore what's flattened. If this were a simple wound, maybe. But this is beyond standard repair. Kaito's face fell. If Tsunade couldn't fix it, what could they do? Kushina reached up and stroked his cheek, smiling. It's all right, Kai-kun. I know. I'm just grateful I get to see you and the kids grow up. That's enough. She paused, then answered Tsunade's question before Kaito could. He did save me. That night he awakened an Uzumaki Kekkei Genkai. Tsunade's eyebrow flicked. A Kekkei Genkai that heals? I've never. Kaito explained. People bite me. I channel chakra through the bite. It heals them. But it uses life force too. Kushina's eyes shone with worry. You didn't just use chakra, Kai-kun. You used life force. A mother can't stand by and watch her son burn his lifespan away. Kaito protested. I've got more chakra now than before. Kushina hushed him and hugged him tight. You've done enough. Tsunade considered everything, expression softening. I can't rebuild what's gone, she said finally, but I can make something to ease the pain, a device or treatment to lessen the daily agony. It won't restore your chakra network, but it'll give you a better life. Kaito let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Kushina's hand found his. She smiled, small and fierce. They would fight this together. Even if the cure wasn't perfect, it was hope. This is a well-written scene. The dialogue flows naturally, and the character dynamics, Kushina's warmth, Tsunade's quick temper, Naruto's exuberance, and Kaito's internal struggle, are captured perfectly. The transitions between the different settings, the port, the training area, the hot springs, and the dinner, are smooth. Here is the revised version, focusing on maintaining the tone and pace, tightening the language, fixing minor grammar issues, and smoothing the transitions, while ensuring every detail is preserved. Kaito insisted, I can heal people by letting them bite me and then funneling my chakra through the bite. Kushina sighed, gently caressing Kaito's head. Kai-kun, you didn't just use your chakra to heal me. You had to use your life force as well. I don't want you to lose any more of your lifespan. As a mother, I just can't let my son throw away his life. But Mom, Kaito insisted, I have a lot more chakra than before. Kushina shushed him with a warm hug. It's okay, Kai-kun. Tsunade, understanding the gravity of the situation, nodded thoughtfully. While it might not be possible to heal you completely, I can make something that will help lessen the pain you experience. It was just past noon as Kushina walked alongside Tsunade and Shizune, who carried Tantan in her arms. The three women wove through the lively streets of Dejirashi Port, chatting about old times, their laughter occasionally drawing glances from those passing by. Kushina chuckled, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Hey, Tsunade, do you remember when Jiraiya-sensei thought it was genius to spy on the women's bathhouse? Right there, smack in the middle of Konoha. Tsunade smirked, shaking her head. Oh, don't remind me. I swear, I could see steam coming out of his ears when you got him. He was so proud of his stealth. What did you do again? Set up some seals, didn't you? Grinning, Kushina nodded. Yep. Slipped a couple of explosive tags under the floorboards and tied them to a small genjutsu. Every time he tried to peek, it looked like a geyser of steam was blasting him in the face. Tsunade burst into laughter. He shot out of there like his life depended on it. For a second, I thought he'd mastered some new speed technique. His face was redder than yours. Kushina mimicked Jiraiya's gruff tone. It's all for research, Kushina. Yeah, right. I bet he's still wondering why it only happened to him. Tsunade grinned. And the best part? He never figured it out. Even Minato was in on it, wasn't he? Kushina giggled. Oh, totally. Minato thought it was hilarious. He'd try to be all serious, like, Kushina, you shouldn't prank sensei, but I'd catch him holding back a laugh every time Jiraiya brought it up. Behind them, Kaito followed absent-mindedly, lost in his thoughts. He was still mulling over everything that had happened recently, his mind elsewhere. A bit earlier, Tsunade had sat across from Kaito and Kushina, her expression serious but reassuring. While I might not be able to heal you completely, Kushina, I can make something to help ease the pain you're feeling. Kushina smiled warmly. That'd be wonderful, Tsunade. It'd really help a lot, why no? Kaito sighed, knowing he couldn't persuade his mother to let him use the heal bite on her. He glanced over at Tsunade and asked, is her life in danger or anything like that? Tsunade shook her head. No, nothing like that. Aside from her chakra network, everything else is perfectly fine. She won't be able to use her chakra anymore, but there's no risk to her life. Kushina gently patted Kaito's head, her touch soft and comforting. See, Kai-kun? There's nothing to worry about, other than the pain. I'm just fine. Kaito sighed again, but his mind was already spinning, searching for a way to help his mother. Maybe the... Kaito was snapped out of his thoughts when he heard his mother, Kushina, calling from a distance. Hey, Kai-kun, hurry up. You're falling behind, why no? She called, standing a few steps ahead with Tsunade and Shizune, both waiting for him. It seemed Kaito had gotten so lost in his thoughts that he'd lagged behind without noticing. Seeing Kushina waving for him to catch up, he quickened his pace. As he reached them, he said, Sorry, Mom. I kinda spaced out. Kushina gave him a sad but understanding smile, then took his hand gently. It's all right, Kai-kun, she said softly, and they continued walking together. Just as they turned a corner, they heard a familiar voice shout, Hey, there's Mom. Naruto came bounding towards them, dragging Karen along, with Kaito's shadow clone trailing behind. Naruto flung his arms around Kushina in a big hug, which she returned warmly. So, how did it go, Mom? Did the old lady heal you? He asked, brimming with enthusiasm. Kaito's clone nodded to him before body flickering away, having done its job. Tsunade's brow twitched at being called old lady, a thick vein appearing on her forehead. Kushina smiled awkwardly. Hi, Tsunade said she'd give me some medicine. Why no, she replied, trying to keep Naruto from learning the full truth without outright lying. Karen, standing beside Naruto and Kushina, gave a polite bow to Tsunade. Thank you for helping Lady Kushina, she said with a warm smile. Naruto, oblivious to the tension, grinned widely. That's great, why no? He then turned to Tsunade, giving her a thumbs up. Thanks for helping Mom, old lady. Tsunade's temper flared as she bonked Naruto on the head. Who are you calling an old lady, you brat? She snapped. Naruto rubbed the top of his head, grimacing. Hey, what was that for? That hurt, why no? Kushina smiled awkwardly and tried to smooth things over. Naruto-chan, you shouldn't call people old, why no? Naruto blinked in confusion. But you said she's older than you and even Sasuke's dad. That makes her old. Tsunade's expression darkened further, and Kushina's smile became more strained as she watched the situation worsen. Kaito sighed and stepped in. Naruto, calling Lady Tsunade an old lady is insulting to her. How would you feel if people called you names like that? Or like the time someone insulted Mom, remember how that felt? He referred to the day they first took Naruto to Senju Park. Naruto's eyes widened in realization, and he hastily stammered, but I didn't mean it like that, why no? Kushina crouched down to Naruto's level, her voice gentle. I know, baby, but even when we don't mean to hurt someone, it can still make them feel bad, why no? Naruto looked down, clearly upset, his earlier cheerfulness vanishing. He glanced up at Tsunade and quickly bowed. I'm sorry I called you old. I didn't mean it like that. Tsunade huffed but sighed, ruffling Naruto's hair. It's all right, kid. Just watch what you say next time. Seeing the tension finally lift, Kushina clapped her hands together with a grin. Well, now that that's settled, how about we get something to eat? Why no? Naruto's mood instantly brightened at the mention of food. Yeah. Let's go. I'm starving, he shouted, his usual enthusiasm returning in full force. They eventually settled down in a large, bustling izakaya for lunch. The atmosphere was warm and lively, with the sounds of clinking dishes and soft chatter filling the space. Kaito absent-mindedly picked at his tempura donburi, only half aware of the conversation around him as the others chatted away. Kushina turned to him, breaking the silence. "Kai-kun, when do you think Hotaru-chan and Shikaku-san will be back?" Kaito snapped out of his thoughts, blinking. I'm not sure. They should be back by the afternoon," he replied with a casual shrug, before returning to his meal. Kushina then shifted her attention to Naruto and Karen. "So, what have you two been up to?" Naruto, already halfway through his second bowl of ramen, enthusiastically responded between bites. "We went all around the place trying different food. And we even visited a shrine with a lizard guardian." Karen, more composed, chimed in to fill in the gaps of Naruto's rambling, adding details about the different stalls they visited and how fascinating the shrine had been. Tsunade, taking a sip of her drink, then spoke up. "You know, there's supposed to be a festival tonight. That's actually why we came here in the first place. It's a 3-day event, happens every 2 years." She turned to Kushina. "Are you planning to stay for it?" Kushina's face lit up with excitement. "Yeah, that sounds lovely. We haven't been to many festivals back home lately, why no." She then looked over at Naruto and Karen. "What do you two think? Fancy going to the festival tonight?" Both Naruto and Karen nodded eagerly, Naruto nearly bouncing in his seat. "Yeah, that'd be awesome, why no." After finishing lunch, they wandered around Dejirashi Port, watching as merchants set up their stalls for the night's festival. The air buzzed with anticipation, lanterns were being hung, and the smell of grilled food started to fill the streets. Kushina and Tsunade were deep in conversation about their plans to visit the hot springs. As they strolled aimlessly, they spotted Hotaru and Shikaku returning from their mission. Seeing them, Kushina waved enthusiastically. "It's good to see you both back. I hope everything went smoothly," she asked Hotaru. Hotaru nodded with a small smile. "Hi, Lady Kushina. We had an easy time tracking down the bandit groups. Nothing too difficult." Kushina clapped her hands together. "That's great to hear. You should come with us to the hot springs, Hotaru-chan. I used to love soaking in the springs after missions back in the day. It's the perfect way to relax. Why no?" Hotaru's tired expression softened into a smile. "That sounds wonderful, Lady Kushina. I could really use it after that mission." Kushina grinned. "Then it's settled. We are going to the hot springs." With that, she happily put her arms around Hotaru and Karen, pulling them along. Tsunade and Shizune followed close behind, chuckling as they were swept along by Kushina's enthusiasm, leaving the men behind. Naruto exclaimed, "Hey, they're leaving us," and tried to run after them. But Kaito grabbed his shoulder, stopping him. "Let's leave them be," Kaito said, glancing up at the sky. Then, turning to Naruto with a grin, he added, "How about we do some training instead?" Naruto's eyes lit up as he looked at Kaito. "Will you teach me something awesome? Like the Rasengan?" His excitement was clear. Kaito chuckled. "Maybe not the Rasengan, but if you can land a hit on me, I'll show you something cool." Naruto nodded eagerly. "What are we waiting for? Let's go," he said, pumping his fist in the air. Kaito turned to Shikaku and asked, "Want to join us, sensei?" Shikaku sighed, rubbing the back of his head. "I guess I could take a nap while you two train." Kaito, Naruto, and Shikaku reached the outskirts of Dejirashi Port, where they found a large clearing perfect for training. Shikaku quickly found a tree, sat under it, and dozed off. Kaito turned to Naruto. "Use only your taijutsu and come at me." Naruto nodded eagerly and rushed at Kaito, throwing a punch. Kaito deftly dodged, easily avoiding Naruto's attacks. As he continued to dodge, Kaito's mind wandered to his mother and how he was going to heal her. Being a transmigrator, Kaito knew many things about the world of Naruto that others didn't. He thought to himself, according to Tsunade, There's no way to heal damaged chakra networks, but there has to be something. There must be a way to heal her. For the next hour, Naruto threw punches and kicks, while Kaito dodged them almost absent-mindedly, his thoughts consumed by his mother's condition. Suddenly, Kaito felt a sharp sting on his cheek. Snapping out of his thoughts, he realized Naruto had landed a hit on him. Naruto stood there, panting, sweat dripping down his face as he grinned triumphantly. How? Kaito blinked in surprise. I did it. I totally hit you, why no? Naruto cheered, his excitement overflowing as he celebrated. Kaito came out of his daze and smiled. Good job, Naruto. You actually managed to land a hit on me, he said, patting Naruto on the shoulder. As promised, I'll teach you something cool. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. All right. What is it? Is it something cool? Maybe a jutsu where I can shoot lasers out of my eyes. Kaito sighed, seeing Naruto getting carried away. Settle down, Naruto, he said, bending down to pick up 2 fallen leaves. He handed one to Naruto. Naruto looked at the leaf, confused. Huh? What am I supposed to do with this? He asked, holding up the leaf. Kaito explained, I want you to split the leaf in half using only your chakra. To demonstrate, Kaito channeled his wind chakra into his leaf, and it cleanly split down the middle. Naruto watched, wide-eyed, but then frowned. Hey, I thought you were going to teach me something cool, not just how to cut leaves, he said indignantly. Kaito sighed again. Naruto, remember what I told you and Karen before? There are 5 chakra natures, and we discovered that yours is wind, right? Naruto nodded, so Kaito continued. Well, this is the first step to mastering wind chakra. Still looking a little confused, Naruto asked, how does cutting a leaf help with wind-style jutsu? Kaito explained, mastering this will make your wind-style ninjutsu stronger. Not only that, but it will also improve your chakra control. Once you've got the hang of it, you'll be able to perform wind release techniques much easier, like how Sasuke can use his fireball jutsu, but even more easily with wind release. Naruto's face brightened with understanding. So, if I learn to cut this leaf, it'll help me learn wind-style jutsu faster. Kaito nodded. Exactly. And if you manage to master this, I'll teach you a wind-style jutsu. Naruto grinned confidently. I'll have this down in no time. Kaito nodded and demonstrated the technique to Naruto once more before walking over to where Shikaku was napping, leaving Naruto to train. As Naruto focused on the leaf, Kaito sat down beside Shikaku, watching him try to split it in 2. Without opening his eyes, Shikaku asked, Are you sure it's a good idea to be teaching Naruto nature transformation this early? Kaito replied, I had already learned 2 nature transformations by the time I was Naruto's age. I need to prepare him, he'll be a target in the future. Shikaku hummed thoughtfully, and they sat in silence for a moment. Then Shikaku asked, So, I take it things didn't go well with Lady Tsunade, judging by how absent-minded you've been. Kaito sighed. She couldn't heal my mom. It's her chakra network that's damaged. But she did say she could make some painkillers to help ease the pain. Shikaku nodded and hummed again, deep in thought. Kaito glanced over at him. I could teleport Shikamaru and Yoshino-san to visit, you know. Shikaku sighed. That'd be too troublesome, he muttered, settling back into his nap. Meanwhile, at the hot spring, Kushina sighed contentedly, relaxing against the edge with her chin resting on the ledge as she sipped some sake. Beside her, Tsunade leaned back against the wall, also drinking sake, her posture equally relaxed. A little further away, Hotaru sat with Karen and Shizune, chatting away. Hotaru was enthusiastically recounting her adventures as a genin and chunin to the other kunoichi, while Kushina and Tsunade enjoyed their conversation. Taking another sip, Kushina sighed with a smile. This is really relaxing, why no? Tsunade nodded, finishing her cup. Yeah, always nice to unwind at the end of the day. Just then, Tsunade froze mid-sip. She turned to Kushina with a raised eyebrow, a tick mark forming on her forehead. Hey, Is your son a pervert? Kushina blinked, confused and slightly offended. What? No. Why would you ask something like that about my son? Tsunade crossed her arms. Because I can sense him lurking outside the hot spring. I think he's peeping on us. Kushina smiled. Kai-kun's a gentleman. No. He's not peeping. He's just using his sensory abilities to keep us safe. She sighed, her expression softening. Kaito thinks I don't notice, but he's always got shadow clones watching over me. Kushina then began to tell Tsunade about the night of the Ninetales attack. She explained about the masked man, how Kaito had saved her, and how ever since, he'd been paranoid that the masked man would come after her and Naruto. That's why he's always keeping watch over me, even tries to hide it from me, she added with a wistful smile. She sighed deeply. He even has clones watching over us while we sleep. I'm really worried he's pushing himself too hard. Kushina's voice grew quieter as she continued, sadness creeping in. Kaito was forced to grow up too fast. He didn't really get to enjoy his childhood. A tear slipped down her cheek as she spoke. Tsunade, noticing the tear, gently asked, "You must be really proud of him, though." Kushina wiped her cheek and smiled softly. I couldn't have asked for a better son, no. After another hour, Naruto, Kaito, and Shikaku bathed and met up with the ladies at the inn before exploring the festival. While Shikaku opted for some drinks, the others wandered around, enjoying the sights, buying food, and picking up souvenirs. Later, they regrouped with Shikaku for dinner, booking a private room at the same bar where they had first met Tsunade. Though the atmosphere was lively, Kaito was still deep in thought, trying to remember if there was any way to heal his mother. As the adults drank sake, Kaito sat quietly beside Shikaku, absent-mindedly picking at his food, while Hotaru sat across from them, animatedly chatting with Shizune. Kushina and Tsunade sat a bit further down the table, engrossed in their own conversation. Shikaku, noticing Kaito's distraction and hearing Hotaru's lively chatter, sighed. Looks like it's up to me then, he thought. Clearing his throat, Shikaku grabbed everyone's attention. Lady Tsunade, he began, while helping to treat Kushina was one reason we came to find you, it wasn't the only reason. He nudged Kaito, who blinked and realized everyone was now looking at him. Since it's your idea, you should tell her, Shikaku urged. Kaito, a bit flustered, sat up straighter. Oh right. I'm sorry. Yes, we came here to also ask you to become the 5th Hokage. This is an excellent continuation of the scene. The dialogue is sharp, the revelations about Minato's death and the Uchiha situation are impactful, and the tension is palpable. The characters' reactions, Tsunade's shock, Naruto's rage, Kushina's protective instinct, and Shikaku's calm maneuvering, are perfectly captured. Here is the revised version, focusing on maintaining the tone, fixing minor grammatical errors, and ensuring a tight, impactful narrative flow. Tsunade paused, her cup of sake halfway to her lips, and fixed Kaito with a serious look. She hadn't expected this, Kaito asking her to become the next Hokage. Across the room, Shizune, in mid-sip, choked on her drink, coughing as she quickly patted her chest. Hotaru, sitting beside her, leaned over and gave her a few supportive pats on the back. Naruto, meanwhile, nearly choked on his food. His eyes widened as he turned towards his brother, stunned that Kaito nii would suggest her for Hokage. Kushina, sitting next to Naruto, gave him a firm pat on the back as he swallowed, sighing in relief. She handed him some water, and he gratefully drank it, glancing around the room. Tsunade's gaze stayed locked on Kaito, then shifted to Shikaku. The room fell silent as her eyes moved between the two. She finished her sake in one swift gulp, then slammed the cup down on the table, her focus now on Kushina. Kushina gave her a nervous smile, knowing all too well how sensitive the subject was for Tsunade. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at her. I thought the old man didn't know you were here. Kushina raised her hands defensively. He doesn't, I swear. Tsunade, I wouldn't lie to you, no. Tsunade's eyes flicked between Kaito and Shikaku, her tone sharp as she asked, So, if you're not under the old man's orders, who sent you? Kaito was quick to answer. No one sent us, Lady Tsunade. The third Hokage doesn't even know we are here, or that Mom's left the village. We came to see if you could heal her, and to convince you to become the fifth Hokage. Shikaku chimed in, nodding. The third Hokage has grown old, and Konoha's not in the best shape. That's why the village needs a new leader, and why we've come to you. Tsunade's gaze hardened as she studied them both. So, you're trying to overthrow the current Hokage? You do realize, kid, that could be seen as treason. Who gave you the authority to make such a request? Kaito lazily waved her off. It's not treason. After Dad's death, the third Hokage was never officially re-elected. He was only chosen to fill in temporarily until a suitable successor for the fourth could be found. But it seems like he's forgotten about that. Us finding someone to replace him isn't treason, it's just overdue. And you're the best choice. Shikaku sighed, starting to explain, there's a reason why we… But Tsunade cut him off. I decline, Tsunade said flatly, not even looking at Kaito or Shikaku. I have no interest in becoming Hokage. It's a fool's job. Only a fool would take it. She took a sip of her sake. Fools, all of them. Kushina frowned at Tsunade's words, but Naruto, sitting beside her, reacted more sharply. Hearing Tsunade mock the Hokage, Naruto shot to his feet, anger flaring. Who do you think you are? How dare you mock the Hokage, especially my dad? He gave his life to save us. He was the greatest Hokage. Tsunade's expression didn't change. And what did that get him? Where is he now? Dead. And for what? The village. She took another sip. All the Hokage, no matter how great, are dead. They sacrificed everything, and yet the village is no safer. My grandfather, your father, Minato, they all threw their lives away for the village. It's a sucker's bet. Naruto clenched his fists, shaking with rage as he let out a bitter laugh. Just as he lunged forward, a chakra chain, courtesy of Kaito, wrapped around his waist, holding him back as he struggled. Tears welled in his eyes as he shouted, "Let me go. I'll make her take it back, believe it." Kushina quickly moved, her face pained but calm, as she pulled Naruto into her arms. "Calm down, Naru-chan," she whispered softly, her gaze filled with disappointment as she glanced at Tsunade. But Tsunade wasn't looking at them. Karen, sitting beside Hotaru, looked frightened by the tension in the room. Hotaru gently put an arm around her, offering comfort. Shikaku sighed heavily, watching the situation unfold. Kushina, having exerted some effort, felt a sharp flare of pain and let go of Naruto, crouching slightly while holding her abdomen. Naruto was still restrained by Kaito's chakra chain. Tsunade noticed Kushina in pain, and her expression softened a bit, but she didn't make any move to help. Kaito glanced at his mother, who gave him a strained smile in return. "Calm down, Naruto," Kaito said, holding his brother back. Naruto, still crying and furious, shouted at Kaito, "How can you sit there and not say anything? She just insulted Dad." Kaito sighed. "I'm not angry because I know Dad didn't die protecting the village." Looking at Tsunade, Kaito continued, "Why does everyone assume Dad died because of the Ninetales attack? Mom and I were the only ones there when it happened." Kaito took a sip of his tea before speaking again. "The entire Ninetales attack lasted less than 5 minutes. Do you really think it would have been over that quickly if Dad was struggling against both the Ninetales and the Masked Man?" He paused, his gaze shifting to Tsunade. "There's a reason Dad was chosen as Hokage over all the Sannin," he added, looking pointedly at Tsunade. Kaito continued, "In those 5 minutes, Dad not only defeated the Masked Man, though sadly, he managed to escape before Dad could finish him off, but he also ensured the Masked Man could never control the Ninetales again by placing a contract seal on him. That's why he hasn't shown up since." He closed his eyes briefly. All that, accomplished in less than 5 minutes. Opening his eyes, Kaito focused on Tsunade. Dad died because he chose to. He wanted to save Mom, and the only way to do that was to seal half of the Ninetales into her. To accomplish this, he had to split the nine tails into two, and the only jutsu capable of such a feat requires the user to sacrifice their soul in return. He died because he wanted his wife to see her children grow up. He died for his family, not because he needed to save the village. Kushina wiped her tears and managed a faint smile at Kaito. Naruto nodded, his eyes still glistening with tears. Karen, who hadn't known much about Minato's story, looked on in awe. All she knew was that Aunt Kushina was married to the fourth Hokage. Seeing Naruto calm down a bit, Kaito created a shadow clone and asked Naruto and Karen to follow it. Naruto wiped his tears and, with renewed determination, pointed at Tsunade. Just watch. Someday, I'll be Hokage. That's my dream, just like dads and moms. Believe it. Tsunade's eyes widened in shock at Naruto's bold declaration. After Naruto and Karen had left, Shikaku noticed Tsunade's somewhat dazed look and said, "Please hear us out before you make a decision, my lady." Tsunade, though reluctant, nodded and took a sip of her sake. Shikaku began explaining, "As you might have already figured out, there's a reason we've come to you now. The situation in Konoha isn't good. The Nine Tails attack was orchestrated by a masked man with the Sharingan, and even after Lady Kushina and Kaito testified to the Hokage that the masked man wasn't part of the Uchiha clan, you can probably guess what happened next." Tsunade nodded. The village started monitoring the Uchiha clan. Shikaku nodded in agreement. Yes, the Uchiha were asked to leave their previous homes and relocate to a corner of the village. As you can imagine, that didn't sit well with them, but they agreed and are now under constant surveillance. Tensions between the village and the Uchiha are at an all-time high, and the Hokage isn't helping matters. Tsunade responded, "Well, there's a simple solution to that. Just make one of the Uchiha Hokage. Surely, there must be someone capable among them. That should solve the issue." Kaito spoke up, "Ideally, selecting an Uchiha clan member as the next Hokage might be the best solution. But the Uchiha's reputation is pretty tarnished right now. After the Nine Tails attack, Mr. I do everything for the village," Kaito made air quotes, "decided it would be best to spread rumors that the Uchiha were responsible for the attack and the fourth's death because they were opposed to Dad being Hokage." Tsunade snorted when Kaito air quoted everything for the village, already knowing who that referred to. Kaito continued, "As you can imagine, the Uchiha didn't take this lightly. The people of Konoha began provoking them, which led to the police force retaliating, and things just escalated." Shikaku added, "It got even worse after Kaito exposed Lord Danzo for possessing a Sharingan he obtained by killing an Uchiha clan member." Tsunade and Shizune's eyes widened in shock. Tsunade slammed her fist on the table, exclaiming, "What?" Kaito nodded, explaining, "I sensed and informed the third, Sensei, and Fugaku-sama that Danzo had an implanted Sharingan. Things deteriorated further when the Hokage merely gave Danzo a slap on the wrist and disbanded Root on the surface, without genuinely addressing the Uchiha situation. The third tried to suppress everything, but as you can imagine, this only worsened the relationship with the Uchiha clan." Tsunade turned to Kaito and asked, "How do you know that Danzo's Root wasn't completely disbanded?" Hotaru was quick to respond, "Well, he sent Root to assassinate our team during the Chunin exams." Kushina, just hearing this, exclaimed, "He did what? How dare he?" Kaito winced at his mother's reaction and said, "Relax, Mom. We handled it. He even lost an arm and half a face, so we are even." Tsunade, Kushina, and Shizune looked at Kaito in disbelief. Kaito nodded and added, "The Uchiha clan is on the brink of a coup, and Konoha is facing a civil war. A new Hokage, one who even the Uchiha respect, might help calm things down." Tsunade looked at Kaito and asked, "Why me? If you want a Sannin, you could always ask Jiraiya." Kaito replied, "You're not just a Sannin, you're also the granddaughter of the first Hokage. On top of that, you're widely respected as the best medical ninja and have saved countless shinobi during the Second and Third Ninja Wars. Even the Uchiha clan respects you, despite you being a senju." He took out a scroll and placed it on the table. We are offering you 500 million Ryo if you agree to become the 5th Hokage. Shizune's eyes widened at the amount of money being offered. Shikaku raised an eyebrow at Kaito, clearly curious about where he got such a large sum. Tsunade glanced at the scroll and said, "Do you really think putting me in the Hokage seat will magically solve everything?" Kaito shook his head. "I never said it would. I know that even with you as Hokage, convincing the Uchiha clan will be tough. But I've come up with 2 ideas that might help restore their reputation and integrate them back into the village." Tsunade eyed Kaito intently, taking a sip of her sake before asking, "And what are these ideas you've come up with?" Shikaku turned to look at Kaito as well, clearly curious since Kaito hadn't shared his plans with him yet. After a small sip of his tea, Kaito began, "One way to better integrate the Uchiha clan into the village is by allowing other clans and shinobi to join the Uchiha police force." Tsunade let out a snort, setting her cup down and reaching for the sake bottle. "Heh. Good luck with that, kid. The Uchiha clan would never go for it. Their pride's tied to that police force." Kaito nodded, placing his own cup on the table. "True. But the Uchiha have to realize the police force is also one of the reasons they're so resented right now." Tsunade's brow furrowed slightly as she listened. "Go on." He continued, "The Uchiha police force is a double-edged sword, something the 2nd Hokage put in place. On the one hand, it gave the Uchiha clan a sense of power, a role that seemed important within the village. But on the other hand, it created a lot of resentment. It placed them in a position where they were constantly enforcing rules and handing out punishments, which put them at odds with the rest of the village. And let's be honest, it was also a way to keep them under surveillance, to keep them in check." As Kaito explained, Kushina, Hotaru, Shizune, and Tsunade listened closely. Shikaku, arms folded across his chest, gave a small nod, clearly following Kaito's reasoning. Kaito continued, "By allowing other clans and shinobi to join the police force, it changes the dynamic. It becomes a shared responsibility. It stops being something that isolates the Uchiha and instead becomes a position that's respected by the whole village. It could foster cooperation, break down the barriers between the Uchiha and everyone else." Tsunade looked at Kaito and gave a thoughtful nod before speaking. "While it's true the police force is part of the problem, there's still the issue of convincing the Uchiha to allow others in. They'll see it as the village stripping away more of their power." Kaito acknowledged her point with a nod, then continued, "That's why, even if other clans and shinobi are allowed to join, the police force should still remain under Uchiha control. That way, they won't feel like they're losing authority. It'll be a compromise they can accept." Tsunade raised an eyebrow but motioned for him to go on. Kaito explained further, "We could also offer the Uchiha clan the position of the 6th Hokage. By the time that happens, their reputation within the village will have improved. It shouldn't be too hard to sell the idea." He paused briefly before adding, "As for candidates, there are 2 Uchiha who would make excellent Hokage, Itachi and Shisui. Both of them have the qualities and the potential to lead the village." Kushina looked contemplative, her brow furrowing slightly. "Itachi-kun." After a moment of thought, she nodded. Kaito nodded in agreement. "Itachi may be young now, but he's already showing the qualities of a good leader. In a few years, he'll be at Kage level." Hotaru chimed in with a firm nod. "I agree. Itachi-kun could definitely make a good Hokage." Shikaku stroked his chin thoughtfully. I can see it happening. Itachi's calm and intelligent, and in a few years, he'll be more than capable of handling the role. As for Shisui, while I haven't spent as much time with him, every time we've crossed paths, he's been level-headed and has a solid reputation." Tsunade, however, remained skeptical. "You really think they'll just agree to this without any guarantees, kid? If so, you're a fool." Kaito nodded, his expression serious. "Not if the 5th Hokage announces Itachi and Shisui as candidates, it will work." Shikaku considered this, then nodded slowly. "It might work, but both Itachi and Shisui are quite young. They'd need at least another 5 to 10 years to be ready for the position." Kaito agreed, I know. That's why I have another idea. We could create a new position directly under the Hokage, essentially, the second-in-command of the village. It would be a hereditary role for the Uchiha clan, similar to the police force. Think of it as a shadow cage position. This could be the best way to convince the Uchiha clan. They'd likely agree to it. Tsunade snorted, taking another sip of sake. You're planning to create a new position? That's just going to destabilize Konoha and widen the rift between the clans. Shikaku looked at Kaito with a thoughtful expression. Lady Tsunade's right, Kaito. The other clans won't be happy about this, especially with giving the Uchihas a permanent position. Kaito shook his head firmly. Why not? The Uchiha clan is one of the founding clans still around. They've fought for Konoha countless times. This could help prevent the current situation from recurring and ensure stability. Kaito turned to Tsunade, his expression resolute. The opinions of the other clans wouldn't matter if the position was granted to the Uchiha by the new Hokage as a gesture of goodwill. It would be an acknowledgement of all the mistrust the village has placed on them. Plus, the third already did something similar with Danzo. Shikaku shook his head, frowning. But that's exactly the problem. It's already led to the situation we are in now. Kaito remained calm. We limit the power of the position. Anything major would still need the Hokage's approval. And it would serve a practical purpose too. When Konoha loses a Hokage, like with the fourth, there would be someone ready to take charge until the next Hokage is chosen. It would stop power vacuums from happening. Tsunade snorted again, her amusement clear. That's still giving too much power to the Uchiha clan. If one of them were to become Hokage, they'd have full control over Konoha. I doubt the other clans would ever agree to that. Kaito shook his head, determined. That's why they should be given a choice. If the Uchiha decide that Itachi or Shisui should be the sixth Hokage, then there's no need for a shadow cage position. But if they choose the shadow cage role, they forfeit the chance for any Uchiha to ever become Hokage. He paused, then continued thoughtfully. In the long run, I believe the shadow cage position would be better for them. Even if a Uchiha became Hokage, there's no guarantee we wouldn't face the same problems down the line. But a permanent position of power within Konoha's government would not only give them influence, it would also stop them from being so isolated. Kaito leaned forward slightly. That brings me to my next point. Uchiha clan members should be allowed into the ANBU and other divisions. It would help them integrate more into the village. I still don't understand why they haven't even been allowed to work in the hospital. Through his research, Kaito had found that no Uchiha was ever part of the other key departments, ANBU, the Barrier Division, the hospital, or even the T&AMP, Torture and Interrogation, Division. They were restricted to the police force and the regular shinobi ranks. Shikaku thought for a moment, stroking his chin. Allowing the Uchiha to integrate into the village, while also giving them a position of power, it might just work. Tsunade downed the rest of her sake, then smirked slightly. Well, it seems I'm not needed after all. The two of you have everything figured out for this plan to succeed. And I'm guessing you've already got other candidates lined up for the fifth Hokage as well, she added, standing up with a nod. Shikaku turned to her, his tone cautious. Lady Tsunade. Before Shikaku could finish speaking, Tsunade cut him off. As I've said before, I'm not interested in becoming the fifth Hokage, she snapped, not even looking at them. You're wasting your time and mine. She turned towards the door. Come on, Shizune. We are leaving. Shizune hesitated, torn between following Tsunade and staying with the others. She glanced at them, then back at her mentor. Kushina, tired and a little disheartened, softly called out, Tsunade, her voice trailing off. Tsunade sighed heavily and looked at Kushina. Kushina. I'll send you the medicine with Katsuyu. Shizune, clearly conflicted, bowed her head in apology and stood up, hurrying to follow her sensei. Kaito sat quietly, his gaze fixed on his tea, deep in thought, his expression serious. Just as Tsunade's hand grasped the door handle, Kaito's voice cut through the silence. What if I told you that the decline of the Senju wasn't just bad luck? Tsunade froze, her fingers tightening around the handle as Kaito's words echoed in the room. Kaito sipped his tea calmly, completely unfazed by the stunned silence that followed his statement. Everyone in the room stared at him in disbelief, still processing what he had just said. Shikaku narrowed his eyes, clearly skeptical. He knew Kaito wouldn't throw out a statement like this without some kind of proof, but it still made him cautious. Kushina and Hotaru exchanged confused glances, both of them looking at Kaito with wide eyes, unsure of where he was going with this or what he was implying. Shizune looked shocked, her gaze shifting between Kaito and Tsunade as if waiting for a response. Tsunade, who had been half-turned towards the door, swung back around, fixing Kaito with a sharp, narrowed-eyed glare. Her voice was cold and serious as she asked, "What did you just say, brat?" Kaito, setting his cup down on the table with a soft clink, replied evenly, "What if I told you that the decline of the Senju wasn't just a stroke of bad luck?" In an instant, Tsunade was beside Kaito, grabbing his shirt and lifting him off his feet so they were eye to eye. "What did you say, brat?" she demanded, her words sharp and deliberate. Kaito didn't flinch. He met her gaze calmly, gripping her wrist without a trace of fear. Shikaku reacted swiftly, dropping into a crouch, his fingers already forming the trigger seal for his shadow possession jutsu. "Let him go, Lady Tsunade," he said firmly. "I'm sure Kaito will explain what he meant." He was prepared to act if necessary. Kushina had jumped to her feet, worry etched on her face. "Please let him go, Tsunade," she pleaded, her voice soft but urgent. Kaito-kun wouldn't say something like that without evidence. She knew her son well enough to trust that there was a reason behind his words. Hotaru was also on her feet, poised to intervene if needed. She knew Kaito better than most, he never spoke without reason, and she was certain he had something to back up his claim. Near the door, Shizune muttered softly, "Lady Tsunade." But her words were lost in the tension filling the room. Tsunade, still holding Kaito by the shirt, locked eyes with him. He didn't flinch, staring back just as firmly. After a long pause, she let go, her tone firm as she said, "You've got 10 minutes to explain yourself, brat." The tension in the room eased slightly, though everyone remained on edge, watching intently. Kaito landed lightly on his feet, straightened his shirt with a calm nod, and took his seat again. Tsunade returned to her chair, folding her arms, her gaze never leaving him as she waited for him to begin. Once everyone was seated, Shikaku spoke up, his voice sharp but curious. "So, what did you mean by that, Kaito?" Kaito glanced at Tsunade, his expression serious. "Like I said, the decline of the Senju clan wasn't just bad luck." He reached into his pouch as he continued. "When I was little, I asked Mum about the other members of the Uzumaki clan. If they were allies of Konoha, why weren't they around? She told me that the Uzumaki clan was destroyed at the end of the Second Great Shinobi War, attacked by 3 of the 5 great shinobi villages." As he spoke, he pulled out a scroll and placed it on the table. Kushina, Shikaku, and Hotaru all exchanged confused glances, unsure where Kaito was going with this, but they let him continue. "When I first heard that, I was confused," Kaito continued, his tone steady. "Mum told me that the Uzumaki clan's village was protected by the whirlpool and that only those with the right knowledge could navigate. So how could 3 of the 5 great villages manage to destroy it? Something didn't sit right with me. It seemed too convenient that Konoha, who were losing the Second Great Shinobi War because they were stretched on all fronts, suddenly won right after the Uzumaki village was destroyed. The other villages suffered heavy losses from that attack." Kushina's eyes widened at Kaito's implication, her breath catching as the pieces started to fall into place. Tsunade, too, stared at him, her eyes widening as her mind drifted back to the Second Shinobi War, recalling the grim history. Shikaku narrowed his eyes, suspicion creeping into his voice. "Are you suggesting Konoha would do something like that to one of its own allies, Kaito?" Kaito gave a small nod. "That's exactly what I thought at first, that it was just a coincidence. Bad luck, perhaps. I wouldn't have believed it myself, until one of my clones found a few files." With that, Kaito bit his thumb, smearing blood onto the scroll as he formed a series of hand signs. He placed his hand on the scroll, activating it. Kushina's eyes widened even further, a deep sense of dread filling her as she asked, "You don't mean?" Tsunade's gaze hardened, the weight of Kaito's words sinking in, while Shikaku's eyes shot open in shock, his mind racing to comprehend the implications. Kaito nodded, his expression grim. 2 years ago, when Danzo tried to kill Kakashi, I snuck into the root base. While I helped Kakashi, I sent a few shadow clones to snoop around, see if they could find anything interesting. He pressed his palm to the seal, and with a puff of smoke, several dozen scrolls appeared, piled atop the open scroll. My clone duplicated all the files, mission reports, intel, everything they had, he explained, picking up one of the scrolls and unrolling it, searching through the documents. They were sealed with encryption seals, but nothing I couldn't break. As Kaito found the file he was looking for, he smeared a bit of blood on it and unsealed its contents. He continued, his tone steady but cold, "While going through these files, I confirmed my suspicions. It wasn't just bad luck. The destruction of the Uzumaki village and the end of the Second Shinobi War were connected. Konoha leaked the location of the Uzumaki clan to the enemy." Kaito took out a file, his face softening as he turned towards his mother. "I'm sorry, Mum, for not telling you about this sooner." Kushina hesitated, her hands trembling as she took the file from him. Slowly, she opened it and began to read. Her eyes widened in shock, and her breath caught in her throat as she gasped, one hand flying to cover her mouth. Tears welled up in her eyes as she absorbed the devastating truth written in the file, her heart breaking with each word. Seeing Kushina's emotional state, Tsunade swiftly snatched the file from her hands, her eyes scanning the contents. As she read, her expression hardened, and she muttered under her breath, "Those bastards." While the file was passed around the room, Kaito unsealed another set of documents and continued, "After finding that, I started looking through more of the files. Things that didn't add up before suddenly made sense, like how one of the largest clans, a founding clan of Konoha, could just disappear into obscurity. How a clan that thrived during the Warring States era and the First Shinobi War could suddenly die out during the Second Great War." Tsunade's attention was now fully locked on Kaito, her eyes narrowed as he sifted through the files with purpose. Kaito pulled out another file and handed it to her, meeting her gaze. "Unless it was premeditated," he said, his voice steady. Tsunade hesitated for a moment, then took the file from him, her hand trembling slightly as she opened it. "And I was proven right," Kaito continued. "The Senju clan didn't fully support Hiruzen Sarutobi as the third Hokage. They went along with it because it was Tobirama's last decision, but things changed. When the old monkey, with the backing of the daimyo, started the Second Shinobi War, the Senju openly opposed him, calling out his decision." Kaito's voice grew more serious as he went on. In response, the Senju shinobi, regardless of their skills or specialties, were sent to the front lines. They weren't given proper consideration. They were systematically weakened. Tsunade's grip on the file tightened as her face grew visibly angrier, the paper crumpling in her hands. Kaito handed Tsunade another file, his tone somber as he continued, "While all this was happening, the third Hokage allowed secret experiments on the first Hokage's body, trying to recreate the Mokuton. The Senju clan weren't exactly thrilled about it." Tsunade's eyes widened, her expression growing even more alarmed at the implications. Kaito paused for a moment, then asked her directly, "Who do you think would be the perfect recipient of Hashirama's cells, if not someone from his own clan?" He let the question hang in the air before continuing. "And so, with the third Hokage turning a blind eye, Danzo began kidnapping Senju shinobi, experimenting on them, injecting them with Hashirama's cells to see if any of them could awaken the Mokuton." Tsunade took the file he handed her, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. Her eyes began to glisten, the emotional weight of it all crashing down on her, and her grip tightened on the documents as if trying to hold back the surge of emotions. Shikaku, meanwhile, was reading the file Tsunade had looked at earlier. His brow furrowed in a deep frown as he took in the contents. Kaito shook his head, a deep sadness in his voice as he added, Most of the ones experimented on were children, kids under the age of 14. While the adults were sent to the front lines, the children of the Senju were picked off and experimented on. That's the real fate of the Senju clan. The room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of Kaito's revelations sinking in as everyone absorbed what they had just heard. It was Hotaru who spoke first, her voice hesitant. I don't understand. I'm not saying I don't believe you, Kai-kun, but if this is true, then why haven't they done the same to the Uchiha clan? Why let them be until now? Shikaku, still flipping through one of the files, was the one to answer, his tone serious. It's because of the Uchiha police force, he explained. While the police force was a double-edged sword, it still benefited the Uchiha. It kept them relatively safe. Only the strongest were sent to the battlefield, while the rest managed the police force. After the Madara incident, the clan kept a low profile, avoiding any major conflicts under the third Hokage's leadership. As Shikaku spoke, Tsunade's anger reached its breaking point. She slammed her fist down on the table, shattering it with a loud crack. Those bastards! How dare they! She shouted, fury radiating from her. Without another word, she stood up abruptly, storming towards the door, her fists clenched in rage. Shizune quickly jumped to her feet, following her master in a rush, concern etched on her face. Just as Tsunade reached the door, Kaito's hand shot out, grasping her wrist with a firm but controlled grip, preventing her from leaving. The others in the room hadn't even seen him move. Shizune's eyes widened in shock as she muttered, "Fast." Tsunade turned sharply, fury in her eyes. "Let me go, now, brat." Her voice was full of authority and rage. Kaito, calm as ever, shook his head. "And let you do what? I'll destroy those old geezers. I'll kill them for what they've done." Tsunade shouted, her fists trembling with anger. "They hold most of the power in Konoha right now," Kaito said, his voice steady. "If you go barging in, they'll just brand you a traitor." Tsunade snorted defiantly. "I'm the granddaughter of the first Hokage and one of the Sannin. My word carries weight." Kaito didn't waver. He shook his head again, then held out a file to her. So did Sakumo Hatake. He had a greater reputation than the Sannin, but they still branded him a traitor. Turned him into a pariah, despite all he'd done for the village. Tsunade's eyes flickered with a moment of doubt, the weight of Kaito's words cutting through her rage. Shikaku, already standing, added, "What Kaito is saying is true, Lady Tsunade. If you attack the Hokage, you'll be branded a traitor." Tsunade's eyes glistened with tears as she shouted at them both, "So you expect me to just let them go, just like that?" Even as she spoke, she knew Kaito was right. Kaito shook his head gently. "You need to become the fifth Hokage," he said, finally releasing her wrist as she froze, considering his words. Tsunade stilled, her heart racing at the thought. Sighing, Kaito continued, "You don't have to agree now. Just think about it." He then gestured for the others to follow him. As they left the room, Kushina wrapped her arms around Tsunade, holding her tightly. They both cried together for a while, sharing in the pain of the revelations. Eventually, Kushina broke the hug, her heart heavy, and followed her son out. Left behind, Tsunade slumped to the floor beside the door, tears streaming down her cheeks as the weight of everything settled over her. Early the next morning, the moon illuminated the surrounding forest near the Dejirashi port. It was still 2 hours before sunrise. 2 lone figures could be seen leaving the port town, making their way down the road. It was Tsunade and Shizune, quietly stepping and making their way out of Dejirashi port. As they crossed the town's welcoming sign, they noticed Kaito leaning against a tree at the side of the road. Tsunade paused for a moment before she ultimately continued walking past him. As she brushed by, Kaito called out, "So, you're leaving just like that?" Tsunade halted but didn't respond immediately. After a few minutes, she said, "I'll send Kushina's medicine with Katsuyu." With that, she began to walk away. Kaito sighed, pushing himself off the tree. "Just don't do anything stupid," he advised, starting to head back into town. Kaito's body flickered before he disappeared. As the morning sun rose, illuminating the port town, Kaito sat at the table in his room, lost in thought. I thought it would be easier to convince Tsunade to become Hokage, he mused. He shook his head. He had hoped that Naruto's declaration of wanting to be Hokage might inspire her, just as it did in the original timeline. But things hadn't gone as planned. He had resorted to revealing the misdeeds committed by Danzo and Hiruzen against her clan, thinking that might sway her decision. Yet, she had still chosen to leave. It had always been Kaito's intention to inform Tsunade about these injustices, but he had thought she would be more receptive once she had accepted the role of Hokage. Kushina stirred awake, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. They were puffy from crying all night, and she had requested that both Naruto and Kaito sleep with her, feeling vulnerable after learning the truth about her clan's betrayal. She had wanted to hold her sons close while she slept. Looking at Kaito, she offered a faint smile and asked, "Ah, didn't you sleep?" She walked over to him, sat down beside him, and wrapped her arms around him in a comforting embrace. She asked, "Kai-kun? What's on your mind? You know you can tell me, right?" Kaito sighed, his expression heavy. "Lady Tsunade left, Mum." Kushina's smile faltered, and she gently pulled away, concern etched on her face. "Don't worry, Kai-kun. She just needs time to think. I'm sure she'll come back, why no?" Kaito sighed, his expression heavy. "Lady Tsunade left, Mum." Kushina's smile faltered, and she gently pulled away, concern etched on her face. "Don't worry, Kai-kun. She just needs time to think. I'm sure she'll come back, why no?" Kaito leaped back just in the nick of time as a massive lightning dragon crashed onto the spot where he'd been standing moments before. He landed on a tree branch, his sandals skidding slightly as he came to a halt in a small clearing. Glancing back at the direction he'd come from, his eyes narrowed. Standing on a nearby branch was a tall, dark-skinned man with a broad, muscular frame. His full head of white hair flowed down his back, accompanied by a long beard. He wore the distinctive single-strap flak jacket of Kumogakure, with no shirt beneath, and a thick rope tied around his waist. Dark blue sweatpants completed the look. This was none other than the third Raikage. The Raikage chuckled deeply. "Ha ha ha, look around you, brat. You're surrounded. Kumogakure will win this war, no matter what." As he spoke, Kaito quickly scanned the area. Sure enough, Kumogakure Shinobi filled the trees all around, leaving him no room to escape. "And when we do win," the Raikage continued with a wicked grin, "I'll make sure to take all of Konoha's Kekkei Genkai back to Kumogakure." He laughed darkly, and the Kumo Shinobi around him echoed his amusement. Some of them even shouted, "Yeah! We'll take all your women back to Kumogakure too." Kaito's left eye twitched as his gaze narrowed, hearing those words. His left hand slipped into his ninja pouch, while his right hand gripped a tree-pronged kunai, ready for action. He quickly retrieved a handful of kunai and shuriken, tossing them into the air in a wide arc. As soon as they left his hand, they multiplied into several hundred using the shuriken shadow clone jutsu. The kunai and shuriken embedded themselves in the trees and the ground, encircling the clearing and the branches where the Kumo Shinobi stood. They flew past the Kumo Shinobi without hitting them, scattering randomly across the battlefield. The Raikage laughed, his voice dripping with derision. "Was that your last desperate attack? How far Konoha's standards have fallen." He pointed at Kaito with a sneer. "This is your end." Cloaking himself in his lightning armor, the Raikage charged at Kaito with blinding speed, intent on finishing him off. Just as the Raikage's fist was about to connect, Kaito vanished. Suddenly, the battlefield erupted with streaks of red. A blur cut down every Kumo Shinobi in its path, appearing and disappearing so swiftly that no one could comprehend it before it was too late. In a flash of red, Kaito reappeared right in front of the Raikage, plunging a kunai crackling with red lightning into his chest. In a low voice, Kaito muttered, "Hiroroshingiri, level 2. The Raikage's lightning cloak flickered and fizzled out as he slumped to the ground, gasping, "Ayakai. S. Senko." Kaito relaxed his posture and glanced back at the fallen form of the Raikage, panting heavily. Suddenly, the Raikage's body dissipated into a puff of smoke, followed by all the surrounding Kumo shinobi, revealing them to be Kaito's shadow clones, transformed to look like enemy ninjas. Exhausted, Kaito collapsed onto the ground, staring up at the sky while trying to catch his breath. Thanks to his durability seal, something he had created himself, the clones were able to take far more damage than normal and held chakra reserves equivalent to at least a Jonin-level shinobi. Combined with his skills, it made for a deadly training simulation. Kaito had instructed his clones to go all out against him, and they had done just that. However, with their own personalities, they decided to play the role of Kumo ninja led by the third Raikage. Since Kaito already knew the speed of the fourth Raikage, the clones had kept a similar pace for the third. There were strict rules for this exercise. The clones weren't allowed to use their own shadow clones or the Hiraishin technique. Kaito, on the other hand, was limited to using only Hiraishin to face all of them. This was a test to sharpen his proficiency with the technique. Kaito closed his eyes, steadying his breath as he reflected on the past 6 months. After Tsunade had left, he, his team, and his family decided there was no point in staying at Dejirashi Port any longer, so they left. Tsunade hadn't outright rejected the position of Hokage, but she had simply walked away without giving them an answer. Kaito and Shikaku had considered various candidates to step in as the fifth Hokage, but none seemed ideal. Jiraiya had been a strong option, but he had already turned down the position twice before and hadn't remained in the village since Orochimaru's defection. Kaito knew Jiraiya wasn't the best choice either, given his foolish beliefs and lack of interest in leadership. Shikaku was another possibility. While a brilliant strategist and leader, Shikaku himself admitted he wasn't at Hokage's combat level. His appointment might give other villagers dangerous ideas about launching an attack. That left Fugaku Uchiha as the only real option, but making him Hokage would be difficult, especially given the current circumstances. And speaking of the situation, things had worsened. Itachi had confirmed that the Uchiha clan was indeed planning a coup d'état. They had already begun stockpiling weapons and armor in preparation. And that wraps up today's episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother. Kaito's journey is only getting more intense, and the future of the ninja world is changing with every step he takes. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, share the video with other Naruto fans, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Drop your theories in the comments. I love reading them. See you in the next episode.